What's up, everybody? Welcome to the No Hope Podcast. Now, I'll give you a little insight on this. It's just sitting back, having a conversation. We're going to have guests on occasionally, but we just literally talk about different things in our lives, whether it's victories, challenges, how we got through them, our sobriety. And so every episode, we're going to do something very similar. So Kaytee picked out 5 topics, and I picked out 5 topics. She doesn't know what my topics are. I don't know what her topics are. So throughout the conversation, we're just going to bring up each other's topics and just shoot from the hip. So it's just like, kind of us sitting around the dinner table at night having a conversation. Yep. And we always talk about, man, we share some pretty amazing things that God taught us. Let's do our podcast. And so we're excited and we're ready to just get right into it.
Yep. So here is episode 1 of the No Hope Podcast. And we are so delighted to be doing this because we have been talking about it for so long. And we're like, oh, should we just film in the car or what should we do? And so we set a date and we're just holding to it. We're about to enter into the 11:11 portal. So we're into that stuff. We're into numbers. We're into spiritual things. We're into Jesus. We're into just people having hope and hearing a good story and having a great conversation. So we're just so excited.
Absolutely.
So excited, yes.
All right, so do you want to go first or do you want me to go first as far as the topics?
My computer is on the rainbow spinning circle right now, so you are going to have to go first.
Okay, awesome. So we figured the first episode will kind of be diving into, where it all started, and so that give you a little bit of background and history on us and about No Idea, No Hope and why we created it. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of behind the scenes, right? So I'll maybe share like a funny or relatable story from your journey from like building our clothing line. Like it could be mishaps or something unexpected or, whatever it is.
Okay.
And so I'm curious to hear what what you want to talk about, and then I'll go after that.
Okay, cool. So I'll share a funny, interesting, or good story, and then you share a story.
Okay.
Well, I think that the foundation of where No Idea began was really cool because Johnny and I were best friends, and we worked at SeaWorld together down in San Antonio. I was a professional synchronized swimmer, and he was a professional high diver, and we were just having the time of our lives, really fully immersed in our passions. I don't think that we were fully living in our purpose just yet, but very passionate about performing, entertainment, our community of people, all of that. So when we started No Idea, we were actually on a plane ride back from Las Vegas, and it was quite the trip to Las Vegas. It was my first time. I just turned 21. It was wild. We can get into that another time. But
what's interesting is that, remember that lady that we talked to before the flight?
Yes, that's what I was just going to say.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so the lady, we were just going back and forth, just kind of talking about just life, and we always get into these deep conversations about life. And we were getting on an airplane to come back home to San Antonio.
Her boyfriend had like cancer or something, and so we prayed for her and encouraged her.
Yeah.
And this was, we were eating before the flight.
Yep, and so we get on the flight, and it's an empty, like, Southwest flight. And so we go and get seats, and then she sits right in front of us, so we can all just, like, kind of hang out or whatever. And Johnny and I had been talking about starting a clothing line. Always loved fashion. Johnny's always loved fashion, so we're just into it, and we're like, yes, let's do it. Let's start a clothing line,
And I was like, cool, what should we name it?
And I was like...
And we were like, I have no idea.
So
but then something clicked in Katie's head when I said that she was like, oh, what if it was like called No Idea, but instead of N-O, it's K-N-O-W. And I was like, dude, I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, and from there, it really started to evolve. And we're like, okay, well, what do we want people to know? What do we believe that we should know here on earth? What do we believe that we should experience? And a lot of it is purpose. A lot of it is passion. It's really knowing what you love to do. And ultimately, it became, what did God create you to do? Like, why are you here? Who are you here to serve? And how can you be really rooted in your authentic self. And that really comes down to, peeling off all of the layers that come with inauthenticity. So,
and it's hard too, because we're I don't want to say like indoctrinated, but our parents and their parents and their parents, they taught their children certain ways to behave, right? And so you can kind of get lost or not even realize who you are. And I think you have to go through, I always like to say, sometimes you have to experience what you're not in order for you to realize who you are. And I think that's part of God's plan, is we have to go through those dark, difficult challenges, because it makes us question, like, why is this going on? Or, why am I going through this, whatever it is? And then through that, you start to really tap into, like, who am I? And then I think what Kaytee is really good at is authenticity, because there is something so powerful when you live an authentic life. And there's a book called The Art of Not Giving Up, right? And when you're authentic and you realize you don't really care what other people, everybody has something to say about you and their own perspective of you. But if you get to that place where you're like, you practice the art of not giving up and you're authentically you, there's something so freeing about that. But you have to get there, you have to work on it.
And I feel like for me, there was a period of time in my life where I was really inauthentic. I was like the opposite, I feel like, of who I am now. And I know that I had to experience that, like what you said, you have to experience what you're not in order for you to realize who you are. Like, that was huge. I feel like when you're really are like, okay, I really want to be authentic, you're going to realize how inauthentic you are and how indoctrinated you are and how much shit you've allowed other people to put on your plate that really didn't belong there in the first place. And so once you kind of clear that slate, then you're like, who am I? And then you're going to have to go through this process of remembering who you are.
It's so true.
And, I started studying authenticity. When we first got married, I had this really beautiful conversation with my friend Ashley, and she was just talking about authenticity. And I was like, God, I love that. I love that word. And so I went on this deep journey for the past 9 years of really learning what authenticity is, what it is to be authentic, what it is to be the opposite of it. So,
That's awesome. And another thing, too, is turning challenges into strength. So now we'll just kind of talk about a time when we faced maybe a tough period and we overcame it. I mean, it could be, personal struggles. It could be, challenges with the business. Anything along those lines.
A challenging time that we had to overcome?
Yeah, so turning challenges into strengths. So basically discuss a time when you both faced a tough period in your life and how you overcame it.
Okay. Well, there's definitely been multiple times where that's happened.
There's plenty to choose from.
Like,
which one?
Which one shall I choose from? But you know what? You know what's so good about challenging times is that it just makes you a tough sailor, right? Because what is that quote where it's smooth sea never made a skilled sailor, you know? And so I look back on all the challenging times and I just thank God that He saw me through them. And so I would think that the most, I could mention one, but I think another thing is really getting people to understand who you are, who your brand is, and really like growing a company, I think is challenging, and not being afraid to really put yourself out there. So I feel like for me, that's something that, and for us, like we've really wanted to put ourselves out there, and we had lots of naysayers for a really long time. Like, you go through that time where people are like, oh, you're never going to be able to do that or whatever. And I feel like that's a huge challenge to overcome.
Right. And I love that too. I like when I didn't used to like it, but I love it now, because what happens is as you start to, build, whether it's building a brand or, clothing line, whatever it is, and you start to like get some momentum and become successful. It's interesting how those people that told you that somehow try to come back in and like, I knew you could do it, man, good job. But you'll always remember who those people are, and you'll be like, dude, if you didn't support me when I was like at the beginning or at my lowest, then hey, you know, you gotta choose your friends wisely. I think that's really important.
And it's kind of cool because it kind of shows like how your friends choose you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like, man, I would love to be friends with that person, but you kind of find out in time, and as you get older, you're like, actually, I'm just gonna like let myself like be me, and the people that stick around are like the real ones. And and that's a really cool experience to have. And
they're not just like friends; they're like really good friends.
Yeah, they're like family. Where you're like,
that's why our top 5. You know what I mean? And all of them are multimillionaires. So, but okay. So a challenging time for me that I overcame. Well, most everybody knows about my struggle with drugs and alcohol, and that was over a decade-long battle of getting clean and then relapsing and getting clean and then relapsing. And I would say the last time when we were living in Hawaii, I was so broken, I was so done for, I was getting extremely tired. And I was able to go to the Big Island to get clean and sober. And that was really tough because being that age, having a little boy and my wife fly back to the mainland, and that was like, I knew I needed to have it because the drive and the determination to become the man God called me to be was like, I'm all in. And I also knew after like my first week or two of getting sober, when I actually was able to like sleep again through the night, I was like, it's game on. It is game on. And I knew I would never take another sip of alcohol the rest of my life here on earth. And I'm excited about it. But it was challenging. So I would get clean and then I would relapse and I would get clean. I had this, I believed this lie that I was never going to be able to stay sober for a long period of time, right? Which just isn't true, but our belief system is powerful. So I had to dismantle it. God helped me dismantle it, broke me down to nothing, and is rebuilding me.
Yeah, how do you think that your mindset was reframed? Because I feel like for so many people, their mind is really what holds them back from things like what you said. I didn't believe that I could ever be sober. So what did it for you to really change that belief within you so you could get sober?
You know, honestly, I think it gets to where you have like this disgust in yourself, and that like disgust in a good way. Like you just know with everything in you, this is not who God created me to be. Yeah. And I'm willing to go through whatever I have to go through to become that man. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it takes a decade. I don't care if it's lonely. Whatever it is, I'll go through it, God. And I think it was that willingness to be like, hey, what I want your will. And even if it's a difficult, challenging road to get to that version of myself, take me down it. And so now I really like resistance and all that stuff is like, I mean, to me, it's like, oh, opportunity for growth. And so I have opportunities to grow, but really the perspective and my mindset on how I see things has drastically shifted. So I would say work on your mindset. So really go in and what are your beliefs? What are you telling yourself every single day? Like, what are your thoughts about yourself? What's the story you tell yourself? Stop telling that old story and tell the new one. The new one where you're victorious. The new one that you want to write with the dreams and visions you have of your future, of the success and the company that you want to build. Tell that story to yourself. And then one day it won't just be a story in your head, it'll be reality.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's really, really cool. Now, the book, One More. The Power of One More by Ed Milet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have read or listened to his podcast. He is like the man. His dad was an alcoholic and chose to try to get sober one more time, and he did. And he chalked it up to taking it one day at a time. Now, do you feel that way, or do you feel like you were like, I'm chopping that serpent's head off and I'm throwing it in the trash can.
It was a little bit of both, but when you really understand the one day at a time, it is so powerful. Because you don't have to think about the whole month. You don't have to think about the entire year. Your goal is, when you wake up in the morning, just got to get through today. That's it. Don't worry about the worries for tomorrow or what happened yesterday. No big deal. And I've even gone down to 1 hour at a time. So, hey, just get through this hour. Just get through this hour. And sometimes if you're being attacked or you're just going through like this, uncomfortable, lonely time, if you give yourself 30 minutes to an hour, you go for a walk, you pray, and you just remove yourself from the situation, or if you're having a fight with somebody, and just walk away for a minute and then come back. And you'll have a different, you'll approach that situation differently, but
give yourself like a little bit of a reset, so that you can kind of reframe and kind of step back from the situation. And I feel like, especially as like being your wife going through all of that, I look back on it and I was like, oh, you think about so many ways you could have impacted that person differently so that maybe the change came about faster. And at some point, I feel like you have to surrender your spouse, and you really got to surrender them to God. Every day, when there for a while, towards the end of our time there on Hawaii, I would walk up this mountain. We lived on Pacific Heights, and I would walk up the mountain every day, and I'd sit in this tree, and I would just pray, and I would just be like, God, and I would envision our life. I would do a walking meditation every day, and I would pray. And I remember I was coming down one day, and it started to rain. Thankfully, it was a Hawaii rain, so it's like, magic. But I went under this tree just to protect myself from the rain, and God said, rest under my wing until I put all of your enemies under your feet. I can't think of what Bible verse that is right now, but I knew at that time that's when we had to go into refuge mode. And Jude and I had to fly back to the mainland with my dad and my mom and just really reset our lives and really begin again. And during that time, of course, I went on to get sober too and not drink anymore, which I'm so happy about, because I think about my life and like, I like to drink, but like I only really drink to like fit in, you know what I mean? So I was like, you want to party? Oh, we could party together. And it was like a way of bonding at that point. And I'm just so grateful that it's like out of our lives and that our son gets to experience us in like this sober state. There's days where I just am so happy, because there for a while it was like so volatile. It was just so much arguing, like me not wanting Johnny to drink, and then him, drinking, and him not wanting, and it was just like, so I when we have days of peace, which are most of our days now, which is, it's like the greatest blessing that I think I've ever received in my life.
And that leads us to one of the shirts that we released, and it's called Walking in Answered Prayers. And days like today is all we prayed for years ago when I was struggling, was for the spirit of alcohol to not be in our family, for me to be sober, being able to provide and protect. So Kaytee felt that, she felt protected and provided for, which she wasn't getting. And so every day we're walking in answered prayers. So that's one of the reasons why we released that shirt.
And all of our shirts, they all have meaning behind them. So, they are like a graphic tee or a printed shirt, but every time we make a shirt or design one, we really think about how it's going to make that person feel, the energy that's behind the words on your shirt.
And when you go on our website, when you look at the descriptions, you'll have some information about what inspired that particular piece of clothing, whether it's a shirt, a hat, a patch, whatever it is. And Kaytee did awesome on that.
Well, thanks.
So, but then, Okay, a few other things. I did want to mention this real quick. So when we first started our clothing line, we would get Sharpie markers. We would buy T-shirts, blue ones, red ones, white ones, whatever, from Hobby Lobby.
Hobby Lobby.
So we'd buy a bunch of T-shirts from Hobby Lobby
and
then
Sharpie marker.
And a Sharpie marker, and then we would, depending on the person, if it was their birthday, they got a shirt.
Yep.
But we would draw stuff that basically like correlated to their personality and their character and things that they like, right? So
we're gonna find some pictures. We're gonna find some pictures. They would take like 6 to 8 hours.
They were awesome.
Yeah,
though.
We made one for my sister Esther, and her nickname is Pie. And I loved this shirt because we drew this like really cool pie, like cherry pie.
Yep.
Not like pie the sign.
Right.
On it, and we did all this stuff. Like our friend Tara, she was a bungee girl at SeaWorld, and we made it like it looked like one of her little bungee socks.
It was so awesome.
So awesome. And then
we'll have to find pictures.
We'll
and have like a classic section on the website where like all those.
And we should bring it back too. If there's like a special, we'll bring it back. But there was another girl, and Lil Wayne was like so sick at the time. What year was it? 2009. And she loved Lil Wayne, and so we wrote like the lyrics to a Lil Wayne song all along the side, and we'd sit at the pool and we'd make these shirts.
And then after that, we went from drawing them, and we got I think it's called a U-Do.
Yeah.
And then we got a U-Do where we could screen print them, and so it was awesome. And then I remember the first time that we ever got professionally printed T-shirts. My grandmother and grandfather invested a little bit into our business.
Yes.
And we got a bunch of our very first professionally printed T-shirts, and it was awesome.
So awesome. They were sick. I think we have some of them here. We'll show them in just a minute. But it's cool because we had like 2 missions on the side of it, a black and a white shirt. And you'll see the square logo, and it has a K and an N, O, and a W, an idea on it. And it has the logo, and we just... we're really passionate about it, and we're passionate behind the messaging behind No Idea. To know the idea of your life is to know why you're here, what you were created to do, and that you're in pursuit of that. One of those slogans is see what you can't, and that is all about faith. It's having faith in the vision that God put within you, that you can like make it happen, that you can do it. And I love how Ed Milet talks about God, because everybody is on their own walk with God, and I'm not trying to force you to do anything. I believe that God calls us and desires a relationship with us, and I think it's like one of the coolest relationships that you can have.
I agree.
Only because I think about so many times where that's like all I had, you know what I mean? And I'm sure you have definitely experienced this, but like that's what you had was your relationship with God, because it was like that was like your foundation and what you could count on. And so to see what you can't is to have that deep belief in your vision. You know?
Use that faith. See what you can't. I love that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so a few more things before we wrap up here. Do you remember, besides the topics going back and forth, anything else that we said that we were going to do? I think we were talking about the angel number T-shirts, that we were going to pull a few in here and read the back of them.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing is the power of purpose. So share stories about your mission to help others discover their passion, discover their passions has impacted your brand and your audience. So highlight testimonials or moments that reinforce your commitment to this purpose.
Well, I think that we've had a personal testimony that's incredibly strong, that we've really experienced very high highs and very low lows, and just to be fully committed to share the message for people to really become who they were created to be. Because if we have people fully living in their purpose and then their creation, it just makes the world a better place. They're not trying to be a copycat. They're not trying to do exactly what this other person does, but they're really being genuine to who they are. And in doing so, we all bring about our gifts. And if we're sharing our gifts with the world, we make the world a better place for our children. You know, and having a son, it just gives you this like deep pressure of legacy, of creating a better world or leaving the world a better place than when we found it.
Absolutely. Okay, let me grab a few of these t-shirts here.
Yeah. Man, I wish I could get into mine that I was going to share with you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let me think. Let me see if I can remember them.
Okay. Here's 8.
Oh. See, mine were a bit lighter. I was going to ask you. So, Johnny, like I said before, was a professional high diver. He ended up working at O for Cirque du Soleil. He was one of the top 10 Russian swing artists in the world there for a minute. I bet you'd still be pretty close if you started diving again, you know? But I wanted to see what your favorite dive is.
Ooh,
like, what's your favorite air Buzz Lightyear maneuver?
Man, there was a couple. So I really loved the 2.5 twisting 2.5.
Break it down for us. We don't know what that means.
And a mid-turn quad was pretty fun too.
Okay.
So mid-turn is basically you're going to do 1 flip or 2 flip or 3 flips, and then you're going to turn in the middle of it, and then you're going to go into a backflip. So
you would start doing forward.
Yep. So a mid-turn triple would be do 1, and then you're going into 1.5, and you do a half, and then you do a backflip. So you do 3 flips total, but you do 1.5 front, and then a backflip to finish. And then let me see. Oh, my double twisting double was
double twisting triple.
My 2.5 twisting double was slick, man. It was so fun. So you jump off the Russian swing, you throw your hands forward, you do 2 full twists, you square out, see the water, and do a branny.
What's a branny?
A front flip with a half twist.
And they stay straight the whole time. So it's not like like a flip is where your legs are bent, but a branny is where your legs are straight. It's sick. It's really fun to watch.
So tell us a little bit about your concept behind the angel number t-shirts here.
Okay. So you will begin to experience, as you kind of get on to that frequency of seeing repeating numbers, and basically it's just like we believe that it's just a sign.
God speaks to you through so many things. Symbols, numbers, all that.
Yeah. So I wanted to be a sign of hope or a message. I wanted to be a deliverer of good news in my own way via a t-shirt, because it's like, okay, I saw 888 on a license plate, but what the heck does that mean? I don't know what it means. So I created a shirt, and it has just like the small print on the front. So this one's 555.
Oh, but then, here is 888.
Oh, sweet. So 888 on the front, and then on the back it tells you kind of a synopsis of like what it means. So we have keep seeing 888. It's time to realize your fullest potential. You are worthy of success. Everything is falling into place. You are tapped into infinite abundance. And then some key words would be balance, abundance, and potential. So I just liked that it like shared what it meant, because I feel like so many times that like somebody has like a little necklace, and I'm like, oh, cool. But then I don't, like, what does that mean? And so I wanted people to know what it meant and to feel inspired and to be like, oh my God, I just got a message. That's so cool. And so that's why we created the angel number tees. So yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome.
Yeah. Hold on, wait. I want to think of one more question.
I was also going to say that if you are struggling with drugs or alcohol or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out. I know that can be so challenging, is to reach out and ask for help, especially if it's somebody that you don't know. But I believe that there's something healing when we take action and we say, hey, I'm struggling. Just that right there, there's going to be healing involved, and also too what God can do afterwards as well. Yeah. Right? So don't hesitate to reach out to us at all. Everybody's at their different place in their life, but God has an incredible plan and a purpose for your life. And what I would say is master your mind, master your heart, really focus on your mindset and your belief system, and you'll be able to create an incredible reality.
And if you know somebody who's struggling, like it's your spouse, I would like you to encourage you, because I'm sure you've hammered it into your spouse that you want them to be better, blah, blah, blah. But if I could encourage you just to fully focus on yourself, focus on your routines, focus on how you can be better, focus on becoming the highest and best version of yourself, because we are one. When we become married to our spouse, we become one spiritual unit. So as you start to rise and get better, it's going to be hard for your spouse not to. And I know that's incredibly hard, because you could be in the thick of it and in the trenches and really going through it, and you're like, you really want me to focus on a self-care plan right now? But I'm telling you, that is the best and highest good you can do for your family. So stay encouraged and stay in prayer, and know that there is just like an incredible plan for your life, and that we just love you and are sending you so much good and positive energy.
Yep. Also, if you know of any guests that we should have on the show, or if you would like to be on the show, shoot us a message, and we'll get with you, and we'll chat about it, because it doesn't matter who it is. We just want to just talk to people who you either are just got sober or been sober for a long time. It doesn't matter. We want to hear your story and what you went through, and maybe it will bring hope to others, because that's kind of the reason why this is the No Hope podcast. Same thing, play on words. We have a logo where it's like the world, and it says the world has no hope. Well, it sounds like, that's kind of dark. The world doesn't have hope. But we want the world to know that there is hope through God, right? And so that's what we're going to do on the No Hope podcast. We're going to bring people on, hear their stories, and hopefully be able to provide hope for whoever out there is listening.
And I want to hear from people who feel like they're like fully in their vision, like they're living in their purpose. They feel really inspired, really called, or they're just in that like that seed time. You know what I mean? And so so we're super excited. We love you guys, and thank you so much for listening to episode 1 of the No Hope podcast.